Artificial intelligence was supposed to make the world better. Cheaper medicine, cleaner energy, less work for people. But in June 2026, a group of scientists published a study, and it turned out that by 2030, AI could kill 1 million people, crash the economy, destroy democracy, with a probability that the developers themselves consider unacceptable. "272 scientists from around the world spent 3 rounds of surveys on one question: which AI risks are capable of causing real catastrophe by the end of the decade? Engineers who build dams work by a simple rule. If the probability of catastrophe exceeds 10% over 5 years, the government forces you to act. For most risks on the MIT list, no such mechanism exists. We took each of these risks, broke them down by probability, and built an infographic. 5 blocks in descending order, from 21% down to 11%. Starting with the most dangerous: cyber attacks and weapons. Right now, dozens of armed conflicts are active around the world, and AI is becoming an inseparable part of how they're fought. Not just on the battlefield, but in the invisible war happening inside computer networks every second. The MIT experts assign this a 21% probability of catastrophe. Here's why. In 2024, the FBI declassified an operation called Citrine Sleet. A North Korean hacking group was systematically targeting cryptocurrency exchanges around the world. Their weapon: language models trained to generate malicious code targeting the specific vulnerabilities of specific platforms. Previously, an operation like this required a team of dozens of specialists and months of preparation. Citrine Sleet did it in days. North Korea earned more than $3 billion through crypto theft over several years this way. That was 2024. Model capabilities have grown enormously since then. By 2030, a system will be able to independently plan and execute an attack on critical infrastructure, power grids, hospitals, banking systems, without a human involved at every step. The hacker is no longer needed as the executor, only as the client. 2 distinct risks live here. The first is the potential for harm built into the system itself, regardless of who uses it. The second is when a person deliberately takes that potential and directs it as a weapon. Both exceeded 21%. 17%, the impact on a planet. Every time you send a request to any AI, somewhere in the world a server turns on. It consumes electricity, it generates heat, and it doesn't turn off. The International Energy Agency calculated, by 2030, global energy consumption from data centers will double. In most regions, that electricity is still generated by gas or coal power plants. In 2026, a separate study came out on the physical impact of data centers on the environment. After a large facility launches, the temperature of the surrounding soil rises by an average of 2 degrees Celsius. Scientists called this the data heat island effect. By analogy with how urban asphalt and concrete turn cities into hotter zones than the surrounding countryside. Only a data center runs around the clock, without stopping and without seasons. Around such facilities, the microclimate shifts, plants die, groundwater dries up. Microsoft publicly promised in 2023 to become carbon negative by 2030. In 2024, they quietly admitted their emissions had grown by 30% due to AI infrastructure scaling. Google that same year recorded a 48% increase in emissions compared to 2019. The promises stayed on paper. The servers keep getting built. 13%, disinformation. Courts are already using AI to analyze evidence, insurance companies to assess risks, medical systems for diagnosis, electoral commissions to verify data. When AI introduces a systematic error into any of these points, the consequences don't add up, they multiply. One error in a medical protocol can affect millions of decisions made on its basis. One biased model in the judicial system, thousands of verdicts. That's unintentional disinformation, errors that arise from technical flaws or biases in training data. The intentional kind is a separate and much older problem, but AI changed its scale. During the Russia-Ukraine war, researchers documented hundreds of AI-generated fake videos, fabricated quotes from officials, and synthetic audio recordings designed to spread panic and confusion. What previously required a government-funded operation with hundreds of staff now takes one person with a laptop and access to a language model. One operator generates personalized content for millions of different audiences simultaneously. 11%, the impact on an economy. Goldman Sachs calculated up to 300 million jobs worldwide are at risk of partial or full automation through AI. To understand the scale, that's the combined population of the United States and Canada. If just 200 graphic designers who earned $50,000 a year lose their jobs through generative AI, the cumulative losses already exceed $1 million. Now apply that same logic to software developers, legal analysts, copywriters, call center operators. AI displaces labor, but the financial gain goes to the owners of the systems. 11%, concentration of power. There's a simple way to see how AI is redistributing power in real time. The 10 largest companies in the S&P 500 index, 500 of the largest public companies in the US, a kind of barometer of the entire American economy, control about 38% of the entire index. Today, these 10 are predominantly AI companies. 5 years ago, their share was half that. If the trend continues for another 5 years, all other US companies combined will have a smaller market share than Microsoft holds on its own right now. Stopping this is difficult for a simple reason. The companies developing AI are simultaneously those who benefit most from its spread. Restraining their own growth means losing to competitors who don't. Regulators can't keep up with the pace. And the laws that could limit concentration are passed by the same legislators these companies actively lobby. Behind all these risks sits one structural problem. The most vulnerable are ordinary people, consumers, workers, citizens. The greatest responsibility falls on AI developers and regulators. In the nuclear industry, between these two groups stands an entire system. Mandatory standards, insurance liability, independent inspections, criminal responsibility. It emerged after it became clear that voluntary promises weren't enough. In AI, that system hasn't been built yet. A developer who invests in safety bears real costs: slower development, fewer products, lower market share. A competitor who doesn't invest gains the advantage. So safety is systematically underfunded, not through malicious intent, but because the structure of incentives points in the opposite direction. All 5 risks emerge from market structure and geopolitical dynamics. Better model architecture won't solve them. Restricting dangerous capabilities in one country doesn't restrict them globally. A Silicon Valley company that introduces internal limits competes with those that don't. The EU AI Act pushed its key requirements to 2027. Brussels negotiations collapsed without agreement in May 2026. The US still has no federal AI law. The risks that most require international coordination are precisely those where geopolitical rivalry makes coordination nearly impossible. The window for preventing catastrophic outcomes remains open, but it is narrowing.